Welcome to Random Offense, where we explore the overlap between sports, culture, and sometimes even politics. We will be joined by Mike Pesca of The Gist and his own Substack. Let me tell you, usually I have a monologue, and there's a reason I don't this time, but I've just observed something right here, how I have improperly introduced him to all of you. And when I say all of you, I will also add that you can ask questions as well. It's live, it's interactive. But Mike, I want to bring Mike on. I want to bring him on. I want to bring him on because here, right here, I'm reading. He was introduced by 2A in an email properly. It says, Ethan is joined by radio journalist and podcaster Mike Pesca. Pesca, a two-time recipient of the Edward R. Murrow Awards for his radio reporting, has over a decade of experience covering sports and pop media as a correspondent for NPR. I'm juxtaposing that, Mike, and I don't know if you're aware of this. I posted a Substack of you today, and I just said, we are joined by Mikey Peach. That's what I said in my Substack today.
And that drove more traffic than I was not aware I won for pop media.
I mean,
One of my, am I tilted? I feel tilted. One of my Murrow Award winning exposés you'd love. This was like 2005, and I calculated the value of the plug that Cracker Jack gets in the song "Take Me Out to the Ball Game."
Oh my God.
This was at a time when they gave awards for the right thing, but that's a good idea, right?
How much could they sell that for? Like, they sold the baseball stadium name rights, these sacred temples, and they
Yeah.
sold them off for
Yeah.
promo.
Yeah. And it goes even beyond that, because it's not just the announcers having to say it or you having to say it when you go to the SoFi Field or whatever. You have to sing it. And that gets into your head as an earworm. And they've been singing it since 1900 something. So yeah, it's invaluable. It's incalculable, which is, I guess, how I won the award. And I also think there's a very strong case to be made that if it weren't in Take Me Out to the Ball Game, it wouldn't exist as a product today.
Yeah, it saved it. It's
Yeah.
been supplementing it. It's
Well, it was
like a
riding
trust
high
fund.
for a while. But is that like one of those good teas over the break? And when
Oh,
we come back, what food would not exist were it not for a baseball song?
how much would Oreo pay for the whenever they do the seventh inning stretch, they have to sing. Whoever's singing it has to sing, buy me some peanuts and Oreos. But it doesn't rhyme is the problem. You didn't think
No,
ahead,
that's
Oreo
right.
Corporation. Well, this is a good segue. Okay, I'll do the PTI rundown of the brain right here and say we are going to talk about what I think is just a monster scandal in baseball that is being suppressed. I'm going to talk about, as you have called him, Football Luigi, and some of the responses to that. Don't laugh. It's not one of those laughers. You can't be too glib, but that phrase, Football Luigi, is hard not to laugh at. And speaking of some laughter, the Donald Trump presidential fitness test, the presidential fitness test is coming back. Mike doesn't find that one amusing at all. That's the most serious topic to him right now.
Yeah.
He stopped counting down.
I've been practicing my flexed arm hang, which is what the
Yeah.
girls did instead of pull-ups.
And then maybe we'll talk some Gilbert Arenas, caught up with the feds. Perhaps we will discuss the death of Hollywood. A lot of it's determined by our conversational rhythm. And if we take questions from all of you, which you're welcome to do, and you're welcome to raise a hand and we can bring you in as we see fit. But let's start with baseball. Now, this is something that I've discovered. There's certain things I say about gambling, and I'm not doing it in this algorithmic way for money or popularity, but I see what hits and what doesn't. When I tell people that there's no winning in sports betting, those videos, those interviews do very poorly. Nobody wants that. I think
Right.
I would do better if I said the secret to winning at sports betting, and then I would tell everybody it's not to bet because it's a
Well, you got to
rigged game.
tease it over the break. And when we come back, the
Yes.
secret. And yes.
The secret to winning at sports betting. But we had a video do very well for us talking about the Malik Beasley allegations in basketball of point shaving, which is a term that's gone away, by the way. That used to be what we would call these insider sports bets, but mysteriously that's gone. I went on vacation, and in between going on vacation and coming back, we have what looks to me like a far bigger scandal. And I would submit this to you, Mike.
Yeah.
This would be the biggest scandal in sports if it happened a decade ago.
Hmm.
We are talking about Emmanuel Clase of the Cleveland Guardians, winner twice of the Mariano Rivera Award for best closer, arguably the best closer in all of baseball. One of his teammates already put on indefinite leave for these allegations of insider betting on games. Clase has been put on this leave right now. He is being investigated. There's all this video out there, and if we can pull up the video, I will say this, ladies and gentlemen. It's very allegedly, but allegedly, it doesn't look good. Some of
Yeah.
these videos of these first pitches because
So
there
we
are
got
bets. Yes.
right. So we got to set up. You want to set up what the exact bet was and the nature of the prop bets and how unusual it is, but also how groovable
Oh,
it is.
Mike, you want me to be a professional like you with your Edward R. Murrow awards? I mean, I guess I should give some exposition, maybe.
Yes.
So
Oh my God. It's just
look at him. He's just
comical.
bound. These are uncompetitive pitches. And
These are the this week in baseball highlight blooper reel. Do 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 baby elephant walk pitches.
oh my God. So the StatCast reporting on this and the number nerds crunched it, and they said that his rate of uncompetitive pitches overall was 5.2%. And on first pitch situations, it was upwards of over 17%. So, yes, a dramatic difference. And these ones are just absolutely ridiculous. And what makes it even worse is how good he is. It's the irony of all of this, or the tragedy from Clase's perspective, is
Right.
he has such great control. He's
Right.
not a wild pitcher, which makes it overall inexplicable. I heard a stat that out of 22 pitches, situations this season with nobody on, nobody out, 11 of 12 were uncompetitive. And this guy, so good at baseball, Mike, his ERA is in the threes. That's pretty good. I think it might have been 3.23. It was in the threes. I can't remember.
Yeah. Well, you got to
Not
look at the XFIP, I say, for a reliever. So, but I think the essential thing that we have to tell everyone is the bet that he was suspended for having rigged is you can bet on the first pitch of an inning if it'll be a ball or a strike.
yeah.
You can't right now bet on after the first pitch for a number of reasons. And I think it's just about lag time and how quick they take and how quickly you could get the information into the system. But yeah,
Mhm.
in between innings, you got a bunch of people who, of course, have the keen insight as to whether the pitcher will come in 2 inches off the zone or not. But knowing that, Emmanuel Clase and Luis Ortiz, who is a Guardians starter, were each suspended for
Yeah.
throwing it into the dirt, as it were. And this is, you talked about the rebound statistics. The rebounds you can monkey with for sure, because
Mm.
especially among big men, half the rebounds are uncontested under the basket. And if one guy wants to be a little more aggressive, he could nab 3 more rebounds a game, I think, right? Wouldn't you
Yeah.
say?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's between two guys who are just under the basket. If one guy is super motivated, maybe they even sometimes players let teammates do that. But yeah, what's easier than a pitcher coming in and just throwing a ball? Well, it's not that easy. Well, I guess it would be hard to make it look good. And
Yeah.
Clase didn't trust himself to make it look good a lot of the time because look at those pitches bouncing in the dirt. But 11 of 22, I think that's the stat, he just threw away. And it does look pretty bad. The one thing I'll say is his control and his excellence, it probably plays into it in the fact that no pitcher wants to get behind an account, but he was so confident of his abilities that he was willing to give up a 1-0 count, which is a big advantage to the batter.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the phrase about how theft is theft, but stealing is an art. There's something like that where there's a true art to being able to pull this off without being found out. Clase, though, I think is rather remarkable because he could have been so good that he could have just bet on himself and won because he's on the upper end. I mean, this guy had a .61 ERA last season.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It's insane. It's insane that he's shaving points and he's 3.23. I believe allegedly shaving points. If the allegations are true, based on the video, they look pretty true. Be very weird for him to be caught up in this whole situation and for them not to be true. But we will throw a bunch of alleged leads at it because with Shohei
Right.
Ohtani, a lot of assumptions were made about that situation with his interpreter, and maybe the facts weren't in alignment with the assumptions. But I submit to you the broader meta, because we're getting at the what is this, the broader meta commentary. I'm pretty convinced that the reason this isn't a bigger deal is because everybody's on the take and it creates incentives. I'm not saying that there's any conspiracy. I don't believe in that. I just think that with all these leagues and with Major League Baseball involved in betting, with ESPN involved with betting, it does influence the media ecosystem. And there's a little bit of hear no evil, see no evil. We'll report on what happened. Jeff Passan will come out with a report, but we're not going to treat it like it's existential. If this sort of thing happened 10, 20 years ago, I mean, Tim Donaghy, that's a ref, but that was treated like it was existential for the NBA. What
Yes.
Pete Rose did was treated like a massive big deal.
Right.
This is just a news item midweek, and we're going to pretend like it's not a thing until the inevitable next time this happens with a player.
It's true. Whenever the reporting on Pete Rose, whenever you would read it, especially if it was in a publication that wasn't geared towards the baseball fan who knows this, second or third graph, necessary, obligatory context is in the world of betting or to the world of baseball, there is nothing that strikes at the heart and integrity of the game more than a betting scandal. Quick cut to the 1919 Black Sox scandal, explanation of how the office of the commissioner was ever put in place, some reference to Art Schlichter. This was in every story because I think the Pete Rose stuff wouldn't have appealed to the regular fan as well. What's so bad about that? And then you get the argument, oh, he was betting on his own team. Isn't he trying to win? And we could talk about why that's a bad argument because you
Yeah.
could really blow out your bullpen's arm. And that
Mm.
was obligatory, right? That was what you had to say because everyone believed it and because the commissioner emphasized it. And it was less of a way of orienting themselves around the world, and it was more of a creed. What is baseball? Baseball is a few things, and like eighth or ninth on the list is it is a sport on the up and up that is clean. And that
Yeah.
was so important to emphasize that with Pete Rose, who people wanted to root for and were interested in. It's quite taken the opposite sheen with this. And I remember when the Malik Beasley thing came out, I was blown away. I mean, Jonte Porter's not a household name. In my household, Malik Beasley was a household name. And I was like, oh my God.
Mm.
No one reacted. Oh my God. There were great stories. I mean, Tom Haberstra did a great story
Yeah.
on, he talked about it on your show and he did it on his podcast. But I do think that the sports do not want the walls to come down around this. And this is why, I mean, they took steroids, who, by the way, Emmanuel Clase also had an 80-game suspension for steroids. Maybe he's going for the suspension triple
Cycle.
crown. Let's look at, I don't know if he was ever suspended for beating a guy, that would be awesome. And then he's one away for what? Domestic violence. Sorry to make a joke. But anyway,
Yeah. No.
he's going for the Mount Rushmore of suspensions every way. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
hitting for the suspension cycle. But yeah, you're right. It's not, I mean, Clase, Cleveland's not a big town and Cleveland's not in it. And it's not Mariano Rivera. It's not Aroldis Chapman or someone. But yeah, they're not taking it as seriously and as existential, earth shattering
Yeah.
as I think
Well,
they
it's
should.
still a legacy brand, even if perhaps the old name has more cachet with people, which is a whole other topic. Donald Trump saying that they should go back to the Cleveland Indians. Maybe they should after this scandal. Maybe they need to make a pivot and a
Yeah,
rebrand to get away from this whole.
certainly not guardians of integrity.
No, not at all.
There was a
These.
minor league catcher who was said to be. Did you see this story? I don't know his name because he's I think never got out of single A or maybe double A. But he was said to be tipping his pitches to sorry, telling the opposing batter what the pitcher was throwing, and it wasn't for
Wait,
betting
are you
purposes.
sure you didn't just fall asleep watching Bull Durham? Is that what happened here? Is this a real story or
Come
something you
on,
saw in a
meat, bring
movie?
it in the dome. Yeah, yeah. No one being the mascot, but
Mm.
he was said to be doing this for I can't even remember, but he was so drummed out of baseball that he never really got a second chance and it caused great mental anguish. So baseball is the sport with still the unwritten code. I'm surprised that this isn't so against. You don't hear the other guys on the Guardians or even other guys in Major League Baseball
No.
clubhouses coming out against this. And maybe it's exactly what you say because everyone's on the take.
Yeah, there's no I'm revolted. Maybe they're waiting for the evidence, but it doesn't look good. It doesn't sound good. And there's no revulsion. There's no sanctimony that we usually get. And maybe that's best. Maybe we're in a better place than we were 10, 20, 30 years ago when Rick Riley was demanding that these beefed up baseball players pee in a cup to prove to him that they weren't on steroids. But it's just amazing to me, speaking of Rick Riley, how we're not so easily scandalized versus the past. I remember Rick Riley getting emotional after it was revealed that Tiger Woods had sex with women who were not his wife. That was a huge deal to us back
There is
before
a
social
great Norm
media.
Macdonald bit about that. Oh my God, a very attractive rich man. He wanted to have sex with ladies.
A road bound billionaire cheated on his wife.
Yeah.
And in 2010 or whenever that was, before social media reached critical mass, we had a big freak out about it. And I remember watching TV and seeing Rick Riley wag his finger at Tiger Woods and he was being admonished and everything else. It's just not like that now. Maybe there are too many news items, and maybe this is the proper perspective. Maybe the conflict of interest is actually getting us to where or how a reasonable person might react to a player being involved in a scandal like this. But I don't know, man. It
Yeah.
feels dirty. It feels like something bad is a brewing. I'm not saying it's existential. I'm not saying baseball's about to collapse, but it's a little glib right now. It's a little bit blasé about Clase, if you will, Mike.
I think that you're probably right. It is true. There's less of we all agree that you have struck out against the integrity of the game sentiment because there's less of a monoculture and there's less of a unified media who are just trying to one up each other with outrage. But there are a lot of scandals that wouldn't have risen to the level of real scandal. The
Yeah.
very name of the Cleveland Indians slash Guardians all of a sudden became a scandal.
Mm.
And then I'm thinking in media and all these scandals about just plot lines of old movies with issues of consent or
Yeah,
something like
but
that.
that one was weird because if they had just waited, there'd be zero pressure on them to change the name from Indians. They just
Yeah.
had waited 2 more years. Sorry to interrupt, but
No,
that
I
was
think that's
a
probably true because
yeah.
right, look at the Braves. Um, but I think that when kind of everything becomes a scandal, then maybe nothing becomes a scandal. That's another way to look at it. And so it's not exactly scandal fatigue, but we have so defined down what a scandal is that we've to some extent lost the ability to recognize it. And then there was a lot of retroactive, I think, very smart guy takes about steroids in
Mm.
Tour de France and baseball that tried to define it as something other than a scandal. And the more cutting edge, progressive stance among voters for the Hall of Fame is you're an old fuddy-duddy if you
Yes.
allow steroid use to keep someone out of the Hall of Fame. And I actually believe that too. I don't know if I mean I disagree with the fuddy-duddies. I would vote for, of course, Bonds and Clemens and all those guys. But it seems more of a legitimate point of view than someone who's the equivalent of a tough on crime guy who wants to throw someone into jail for a life sentence for burglary.
Yeah, I mean, the fuddy-duddies had a point. The boomer sports writers had a point, and they were trying to protect the integrity of the game as they saw it. That was a huge generational battle, by the way. I've even written about that. And we forget how big a deal in media that generational battle was between boomer age sports writers angry about the steroid use in baseball and Gen X punk rock, deadspin blogger Ken Tremendous calling them out of touch and mocking them and making fun of them. That was just a definitional internet culture war
Yes.
that so many things sprang from and has been more or less forgotten. And I am digressing on this particular topic.
Could
I
I
think,
digress? Could I digress
yeah,
on your
please.
digression? I was thinking about this
Random
the other.
offense. Go.
I was thinking about this the other day, and so I was one of one of 3 panelists on a sports show called "Hang Up and Listen," and this was
Ah,
it probably started around
classic
2010, and
podcast.
our classic in the classic hand cranked podcast era, and the 3 of us, if we had to list 3 topics that we would always come back to, one is the unfairness of not paying college athletes. And another was how the stats revolution was being suppressed by networks or big media or old fuddy duddies. And of those 2 topics, I guess our way won or the younger dead spinny way won. And has sports been better for it? I don't want to go back to really ripping off Tim Tebow when he's selling those jerseys,
Mm,
but are we in a better era for what sports is, which is not to give a bunch of 20-year-olds good opportunity to exercise, but to entertain us all? Does the
yeah.
stats domination, especially of baseball? And I like knowing what the slugging percentages and on base average and OPS plus. I love all that stuff, but just the concentration of it and the three true outcomes and the four true outcomes and the incorporation of that as the only way to play the game, it's made baseball worse, quite
Yeah.
frankly. Yeah.
Yeah. I interviewed Will Leach of Deadspin about the impact because I identified this blow up. Man, I wish I had art for this. I wish I had a graphic for this. Didn't know we were going to talk about it, but a famed blow up on Costas Now on HBO
Yes.
between the grizzled boomer sports writer Buzz Bissinger and young punk rock Will Leach of Deadspin, who very mild mannered, fresh faced kid back then. Just Bissinger yelling at him and all his
So good.
warnings, and he was depicted in the blogs as a crazy, wild boomer, everything that's wrong. But when you listen to it again and you turn down the volume, a lot of the criticisms make some sense. And you do need somebody to uphold certain standards. Right now, it seems like maybe nobody's minding the store as sports and gambling become this hybrid enterprise. I
Yeah.
mean, the good thing is this the good thing is this the people who defend the sports gambling stuff, they say that there's more integrity because it's become corporatized in this way. I think they're kind of wrong, but they're right that you will get caught. You'll get
Yeah.
caught. You'll get
Well, yeah,
caught.
I did want to say this about Clase. It's not the case that there were what in the CIA would be called human intel
Mm,
reporting this, and then they looked at the tape. This was generated essentially from the tape or probably from StatCast. So then when we see the video, it's a confirmation of the original complaint, if you
mm,
understand what I'm saying. So
yeah.
when we say the video or where the balls actually went makes it look bad, that was the complaint. But I still think that it's very hard to argue your way out of it. Oh, by the way, you know why, in my opinion, Will won that exchange with Bissinger?
Be nice.
He was, yeah, he letting Bissinger be Bissinger. But there was one case when I think Bissinger tried to high hand him and said, do you even know W.C. Hines is? And Will was like,
Yes.
yeah, he wrote Death of a Racehorse, Airlift, full brother of Assault. And it was like, bang, you nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that Bissinger understood that Will was a bit different from some of the other people there and had a
Yeah,
caricature in his mind of who
yeah.
he was.
If AJ Delario was the guest, maybe Bissinger would have won that round.
Although Delario appears to be somewhat reformed. I don't want to talk all Hulk Hogan necessarily. Maybe later, maybe now. I don't know. But Delario had a very sweet remembrance of Hulk Hogan, even though he was the editor in chief of Gawker when Hulk Hogan and Peter Thiel teamed up to destroy that publication. And as I say that sentence, I just think about how strange life is as I
Yeah.
complete that.
Well, I listened to some of Delario's podcasts, which were, I don't know if it was the 12th step, but it was all about amends and
Yeah.
all about a lot about addiction. So yeah, he too is on a journey, and maybe
Yes.
so is Emmanuel Clase. They have to get these silly prop bets off the menu
Mm.
because, well, another thing to point out is that the limits on these bets, they can't have been $1,000. If you bet one of these first pitch bets and get it right twice, they're going to limit you. And you tell me
Yes.
if you think the audience needs to be instructed on what it's right there in the word. The algorithms that run the apps don't want anyone to have an edge. If you do well, they disallow
Yeah.
you from
It's
gambling too
rigged. It's
much.
fake.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
is fake. And
yeah.
there are even laws against they can't kick someone off their site for being good. So they literally limit them to bets of 25 cents. And I know somewhere where I'm doing a Substack live with Isaac Rose Berman, who is a professional sports gambler and also has written a lot about how sports gambling is terrible for teenagers. Really, really interesting guy. But yeah, a major point is you can only make tiny amounts of money, tiny compared to Emmanuel Clase's pretty big salary. He's about a $4 or $5 million a year guy. So I think he was probably telling friends like you don't want to maybe give a friend $1,000, but if a friend says, "Hey, first pitch, can you give me a ball?" and he would say, "Yeah, here's a ball."
Yeah. Here, I'll throw
Allegedly.
I'll throw a yard dart for you,
Yeah,
buddy.
yeah.
I think some of that goes this way where there are friends back home. I mean, this is a point that I made in my Substack writing about it. The leagues are this will be the last point that I make on this. I think it's a point that I want more people to actually understand. I want more people to understand what you said, even if it's not good for the algorithm and everybody's looking to get rich. It is rigged. You are not allowed to win. It's impossible. And the funny bind that the leagues are in is they can't message that. They're in this funny bind of telling the players, don't bet on the games. Well, there are advertisements all over the stadium of people doing the Donald Duck and the gold coins because this is a way to, if you want to risk it, you just win a bunch of money. How's it even different from betting on stocks, that kind of thing? What nobody's saying is what the truth is what you said. If you're good at all, they give you what we call a Ryan Glass-Steagall, who's been locked out of a few accounts and severely limited. You get limited. You get limited. You get limited because you could win if you invested your time and energy. You could beat the house on some of these spreads. And if you're just an educated sports fan, they're not going to let you win. And that's one of the reasons they get rich. It's just funny to me that one of the reasons these players are walking into it is they assume it's easy money because the advertising says it's easy money, when in reality, if you even win $10,000, all the alarm bells are going off and they're on your ass. It's
Yeah.
impossible. You won't make money. Don't do it. Don't get into it.
I enjoy sports betting, but I think I do it responsibly because what I do is I take a preseason bet on a long shot, and then the
Yeah.
whole season I could root for the Dallas Mavericks to win the championship, which they won't. But yeah, I'm not an 18-year-old, okay, a 21-year-old. All my prefrontal cortices have fully developed, and I guess I'm so cheap that I don't want to put $100 on the line because I know that if I have any advantages in life and insight, it's not in sports gambling. I was thinking about this one thing. Did you read the New York Times Magazine article about, I forget his name. He's a tout. He's a guy who, you know what a tout is?
I know somebody who sells their advice on sports betting picks.
Right, right. And so this guy is makes tons of money by wearing $130,000 diamond chains and has huge Instagram followers, and it's all about the lifestyle. So the reason that it takes one sentence of logic to realize why a tout isn't really what he says he is, which
Yeah.
is if you were so good at picking winners, why wouldn't you pick winners instead of go into a business of telling other people to pick winners? But I
Yeah.
was thinking that the dynamics we're talking about now, the touts have an answer. I still believe they're mostly lying, but the answer is because I can't get bets down, but I could give you
Ooh.
the money and I could give you the insight, and that's at least plausible. So it opens
Yeah.
another Pandora's box.
Well, we go from blase about Clase to how you can flout and be a tout. That's where we're going with this. We can take questions if you want them. Although we've done 28 minutes. I think we love that Clase topic. This topic, a bit more fraught, Mike. This is this week's news. Shane Devon Tamora. I don't know if that's even what we should properly do to say the name of a crazy maniac shooter. I think
Yeah,
I
so
just
I'll
walked
tell you
into
what
it.
I do.
Yeah.
I don't do it, but I do think I've over the last 5 years have come to believe that's more superstition. I did think
Hmm.
that if all the media stopped saying names of shooters, they'd not valorize them, and it is true. But there's no all the media anymore. They get
Yeah.
out there, and mass shooters will find a way to get known. So I kind of don't do it as an instinct or an acting as if. I think it
Yeah.
has no effect. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's mine.
It was almost an error in the moment of mine because you almost, when you see a name, you want to get it right and get it out of
Yeah,
the way so
yeah.
you can get the rest of it. And I thought, I don't want to say this person's name. They're a crazy murderer who was seeking to shoot up the NFL offices in Manhattan, couldn't get in, it appears, went into the Blackstone offices. How would I describe Blackstone? As some sort of equity behemoth
It's
of
a
some.
major private equity firm with
Yeah, yeah.
we could list all their holdings and there are a bunch of stuff that everyone knows. Yeah.
And he killed four people, including an off duty NYPD officer and a Blackstone executive named Wesley LePatner. And we'll talk more about the reaction to that. Left a note, murder suicide note, seems to blame the NFL for the condition he's in, CTE. I don't totally get it, but we're analyzing the mind of a crazy person. I mean,
Right.
from what I could read, he played at 5'7", 140 in high school, which I don't think I don't think the NFL was really part of the calculus for someone such as that. Uh, so we have a lot of directions to go. I don't know what direction you want to take. I might want to talk about the Free Press article about the reaction to this poor woman, this woman at Blackstone who was killed, and people celebrated it.
Yeah.
Um,
There's also a Rudin executive. I mean, she's a Rudin associate, which is
hmm.
the real estate family that owned the business. 27-year-old girl who was
Wait,
like a
we've
sport
got a
athlete.
correction here. He actually got up to the office of the real estate firm that owns the
Yeah,
building
that's
in
Rudin, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
35 Park. There we go. Okay.
Yeah.
Smart
So
listeners.
I've done so many spiels, which is an element of the gist, on the topic of not allowing the murderer to set the news agenda. I'm never for suppressing news. You got to understand and explain to the audience, well, what was their motivation, such as it was.
Hmm.
But it's very tempting if someone does something horrible for the counter mobilization to occur. So, for instance, when I could say his name, Elliot Rodger, killed many
Yeah.
women in California. There was the moment when many online feminists and writers said this crystallizes where we are and that women are being hunted. And I said at this point, no, it's wrong to allow the mass murderer to set
Hmm.
the news agenda. This is a crazy person. And don't take the data point of this person's access to guns and madness as more than it is. By the way, we are in a very anti women moment, but the same is true for everyone who's on the alt right. And then the right does it for every time someone affiliated with Antifa kills someone. And I say it's almost always about the access to guns and so much less about what their actual motivation is to take that seriously, to burnish your own points. So this guy was crazily, I'll say, perhaps offensively, obsessed with the NFL, blamed it for what he presumes is CTE. We don't know if he had it. I guess that's why he didn't shoot himself in the head. He shot himself in the chest, like Junior Seau did, and it became a symbol of all the things that has gone wrong in the world. I do fault the New York Times a little bit for doing a front page above the fold story by Ken Belson, who broke most of the big stories on CTE, essentially giving credence to this complaint. And in the second or third paragraph, it used the phrase, but his actions put in the spotlight the NFL's CTE policy. Just like the next day, Bloomberg did a story on the Rudin family. This puts in the
Wait,
spotlight.
wait, wait, wait. Did he
Yeah.
really say that? I mean, just sometimes I almost I don't have a good theory of mind for how media is, even though my job is to talk about media. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have interrupted you, Mike. I'm
No,
just
no.
kind of aghast at the idea of, well, this is kind of a serious topic we should talk about. It's just, what are we doing?
This
This guy
is,
didn't play in the NFL.
yeah.
He's 5'7", 140. What the hell
This,
is that?
yeah. This in violent attack, gunman brings issue of CTE to NFL's door. And yeah. And the second paragraph was it had echoes of a case that had nothing to do with football, the murder of Brian Thompson, the chief executive of United Healthcare. And to me, this is like, well, I did think of that too. But when you compare it, of course, Luigi Mangione has become this hero of the left. Are you trying to do that? Predicting to do that? How much are you legitimizing this gunman's critique of the NFL and CTE? And by the way, when Belson was breaking those stories 10 years ago, the NFL was busy denying that it happened. And for years prior, hiring a rheumatologist to be the key person who was supposed to oversee their brain injury division. They've, okay, you want to give them no credit for doing anything ethical and saying they only acted out of self interest? Fine, I agree. But they acted out of self interest to such a degree that they have very much addressed, not put to bed, but address the CTE issue. They have a $1.5 billion fund for players. They have all these safe tackling methods that seem to have been instituted. They throw flags for headhunting. And the issue is as addressed as something inherent in the sport, I think can be addressed.
Yeah. I I'm glad you covered that angle, the football angle of it. I'm just amazed that it was covered that way of yeah, I've seen some of the Luigi stuff and it's bizarre to me. Maybe this is maybe the theme of the podcast. Maybe we shouldn't overanalyze maladjusted people being maladjusted and having an audience of maladjusted people. And we shouldn't analyze such a thing in wonderment. And yet I am in wonderment over it and bewildered by it. Just how somebody can just not even go into the correct office of the person they were trying to kill random people for other reasons, and have an audience online celebrating them as some sort of martyr.
Yeah.
And I would love to dismiss this as just a few crazy people on Twitter or bots, but unfortunately, I've seen some of it. We can throw it up on the screen, the Free Press article about Wesley LePatner at Blackstone. The article is titled, "She Was Murdered in Midtown Manhattan. The Internet Celebrated It." Now, you could say that maybe that's an exaggeration, or perhaps that's not everybody, and all that I think would be fair. But when I searched her name, I saw all of that kind of stuff. And there are a lot of people saying TikTok is full of these sorts of CEO down celebratory images. And there's just a real sickness out there, Mike. It made me a little concerned. What the hell's happening?
Yeah. Murder is not good and not a
No.
way to get your agenda across. And when I first started seeing the allegation of, oh, the internet is celebrating it, I had my usual skeptical, okay, why? Some guy with 900 followers? Then I saw big accounts. I saw a big socialist podcast with hundreds of thousands of followers giving all of this credence. I'm a member of, maybe I'm somewhere in the maybe I'm a fuddy or a duddy, but not both. This is my age. I think that the media can do probably more than it can. I focused on Belson and the New York Times. I'll read one more quote
Sure.
from that. And I focused on Bloomberg talking about Rudin. They did, as did the New York Times with the NFL. This brings issues of CTE to the fore. So too did Bloomberg. Did this brings issues of how Rudin runs its company to the
Yeah.
fore. Just putting it out there. It's not a sports angle. Yeah, you probably, even if everyone in the media reported on it and covered it exactly like I would have, you wouldn't get anything else. And that's just did I say Cassandra before? That's the Pandora's box we're living in. This is the other part. I wonder what you think about this.
Mm.
So he runs down, it's a good article in that there's not an unfair sentence in it. And he runs down everything that the NFL has done with their landmark settlement and with their safe tackling techniques. And that's all there. That's the prior paragraph. And then it says, the league's efforts largely worked. News of the disease popped up less frequently.
Mm.
I was like, well,
Yeah.
that
Well,
to me, I think you're a writer. Do you think that was purposefully ambiguous?
I don't think it was that ambiguous. I think you got the meaning from it. A little bit of opinion as description is what I got from it. And
Yeah. I mean, I think he's trying to say that it might have happened less, but certainly we're seeing it less. But also, it has happened less by the metrics, or documented case of CTE have gone
yeah.
down by the metrics we use. That's another thing you could have
Well,
put
it's
in
not
there.
like the NFL has a bunch of people traversing the country trying to bully anybody that would talk about this and say, shut up about this. Tua Tagovailoa is fine. He's fine, okay? He's fine. Shut up. Nobody saw that. Nobody saw that happen on national television. No, I think they want fewer of these things to happen, because if fewer things like that happen, then it also is less of an issue. But there is this, yeah, I mean, this is a side topic that Glass-Steagall's spoken about, is he thinks there's a strain of anti-footballism at the New York Times, and
Oh,
there's
there,
something about the
yeah,
sport that
yeah.
they just flat don't like.
I
And
think just as we were talking about like big changes from even 10 years ago and no one even talks about it, a giant change is, do you remember 10 years ago, 2015, the movie Concussion, bad movie, came out. Another data
tell
point
the
is
truth.
Malcolm Gladwell does a speech at the University of Pennsylvania, puts it on revisionist history, boldly predicting that you will look back at your time having a football team as we did. And this wasn't his example, something like bear baiting.
No, his
Sometime,
example was way funnier, Mike. His
what was
example
it?
is way better. It was a cigarette smoking competition between the universities where kids on both sides,
That's
and
good.
don't sue me, Malcolm Gladwell, if I'm misremembering this, but it's stick in my mind for a reason, are just trying to smoke his, like Kobayashi of smoking cigarettes, like Joey
He's
Chestnut
he
just
is
chain
good. You
smoking.
got to hand it to him.
And I thought to myself, you know what? I would watch that on television.
Do you, yeah, I would bet on the first smoke. Is it an inhale or an exhale? Um, Obama asked about it. If you had boys, would you allow them to play football? And it's not like a layup of an answer for me. You really
No.
had to think and ponder it. Don't you remember 10 years ago, there was at least, so many articles about youth football rates declining. Youth football is down. And I would look into these articles, and some years it was true, and some years it was by
Yeah.
statistically insignificant numbers, and then some years it was up. But it really did seem that there was no, it really was the case that there was a concerted effort among elite media
Hmm.
to make it seem that football was really in an existential moment.
Yeah.
I never thought it was. And that seems to have faded away. Just no one even remembers that this was an argument that was made with
No.
vigor, that was made seriously.
No,
Because
so much of it
football's
was
so
pumping
important
up
now.
the NBA as the sport of the future, and the NFL is obviously going to die out and be passe. And we just kind of forgot about it. It's just not going to be a thing. I could wallow more in the sickness and toxicity of the people celebrating this because they don't like Blackstone and what that company has done allegedly. But I think I'd rather take a question, although I have trepidation with that. Aaron is a really smart guy. We've had him on before. He's going to tell us stuff we got wrong potentially. I
No,
don't
not
want
at
to
all,
look bad. I
actually.
don't want to look bad. I mean, I don't know. What you
Um,
got for us?
no, I mean, so to sort of build on this story, and I would say the culture of elite sort of anti um, physical contact sports. The first part that sort of blew me away about this whole story is that I don't know if you guys remember, if you have any experience in New York area, that there's a pretty robust policing program to try to capture anyone bringing weapons into the city through the tunnels, the bridges.
Yeah.
If you remember, there was a
We're
big
gonna
story,
we're gonna go
kind of like a
Plaxico? Are we
yeah,
getting
kind of like a
Plaxico?
screw up, guys that were just transporting the weapons upstate that they own. They had license, but because
Hmm.
that's in violation in New York City, they got
Yep.
arrested. It
Yeah.
was a big thing during the Obama presidency. They eventually sort of worked it out and spent, I don't know, hundreds of thousands and lawyers and so on. And so
I'll
I'm,
give you another one. People
well,
traveling through the New York City airports, every other airport, you're
yep,
advised to check your guns. People would do so based on bad advice, and they constantly get arrested and put in
that's right.
jail for long periods of time.
That's right.
New York
100%.
has extreme, or had before McDonald and other Supreme Court cases,
That's right.
including Bruin versus New York. New York had extremely tough gun laws, and they really lived by them. But go ahead.
Yeah. And even to the point that people's flights would get rerouted. So they were literally had no agency. You can't control the plane.
Yep.
And basically, so I thought that whole side to this, I have my stress ball here, just so you know. It's corporate stress ball from a conference.
No reason
The
to be stressed.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm joking. The but I thought that was a weird angle. It just isn't covered. And given how the Post, New York Times, everyone tries to cover local news, I just thought that was strange, right?
Hmm.
Like, are we interviewing, Port Authority because that's who controls that, port of entries, et cetera? Because it's probably a bigger story to know that, hey, you can bring M4s in through the tunnels and bridges into New York. I don't think most New Yorkers would assume that's an easy thing to do. So, anyways, that was like part A of the story. The second one is this whole piece around, physical, violent type sports or semi-violent sports, which I'm a huge fan of, except sort of MMA because I'm
Yeah.
just old school boxing person, and I do think the fight of the decade's coming up, which will get grossly undercovered, which is Canelo versus Bud Crawford,
Hmm.
which is an era-defining super fight. But I grew up playing, football. I was a really, really, really good Division III player. That's a joke, which is advanced high school. But basically, um, the sports have become incredibly safe relative to when I was growing up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when they
You
wouldn't
know,
give you 2 cups of water, right?
Mhm.
yeah,
Because
no, I mean, you know, I
they
just,
wouldn't. When I
yeah,
played
there's
football,
things I wouldn't say in
yeah.
public that was said regularly about people who wanted water, and you know, and as someone who coached kids and stuff, obviously that's absurd. Later,
Yeah.
you know, you'd have water breaks. Hydration's important to your muscle recovery and being able to have peak performance in the later part of a game. I mean,
Not
so
dying.
yeah,
Yeah,
not
Yeah. Not
dying.
dying is
And I grew
key.
up in LA, and this is during the last of the smog era. So we'd
Mm.
have these, and San Gabriel Valley, we'd have these 4 or 5 stage smog alerts. It was 100 degrees in the summer. I mean, there'd be a kid that would die every year or two in the valley. I mean, it was just like that was just like business as usual. Oh well. I mean, so it was really a weird era. But and we speared. I mean, I played safety, boundary corner. I was an inside receiver in a Z veer kind of system. So you're always just hitting people. So you were just ear hole to ear hole using your helmet as a weapon. I mean, that was the world. I'm not saying it was right, but it's the
yeah,
Mm.
world. And we just are so radically different today.
yeah.
Um, and and in some ways, we're almost paying this cultural tax for confronting this, improving it. And there's just a group of people. I live in the, you know, right outside of New York City, Bergen County, and I have a, you know, a set of friends who, you know, I mean, it's not the Grey Poupon crowd because that doesn't
Yeah.
really exist. I mean, that never, I don't think ever did, but they have that vibe.
Yeah.
Like, and especially when I
Oh,
mention the boxing, oh my God. I mean, I
it's
might as
almost
well
a
like,
status. It's almost
yeah,
like the new I don't own a TV is
yeah,
I'm not gonna let my kid play football. Now,
yeah.
if anybody gets mad at that, there are good reasons health wise not to allow that. I respect that choice, but there is a little bit of status to it. My wife says it. I say to her, hey, if he can play quarterback, I feel like the reward versus risk is on our side. At that point,
Long snapper with the new rules.
well,
Hey,
then the reward risk is different
yeah.
in a way. And if
Practice
he's a
snapper,
kicker,
basically.
yeah.
Aaron,
If
where'd you play D3? Which school?
Occidental in Southern California, and so a small
uh-huh.
school out there. Um, and I went to a huge high school, though. I played at a powerhouse high school in Pasadena, in California, and we produced actually a whole bunch of pros. Actually, I was part of a class that had Ricky Irvins, played tailback, Chad Brown, I played linebacker, Marcus Robertson, I played safety. I mean, that
Wow.
was literally just our. Those were three of
I'm looking them up.
six
See,
guys
I
that
I
played.
would
Yeah.
my kids, and by the way, I love cultural tax. It's a great
Yeah.
way to look at it. My kids went towards other sports, or in the case of one, improvisational theater. But I would have let them play football. I don't think that I'd have a debate with, well, their mother. I might. My current wife.
Yeah.
There's great appeal to the sport of football because it's many different sports, and for big kids who maybe
Yeah.
don't have great fine motor skills, just smashing your body on the line can be a lot of fun. There's a lot of value to that. The sport for the ball carriers is different from the sport of the ball throwers, the sport of the safeties, the fast guys. It's really a
And look,
wonderful,
I'll say
wonderful
this. Look,
sport.
my daughters played soccer very competitively into college, and they were one was a striker and one was a defender. I mean, one was a beautifully Ray Lewis type of defender. I mean, you know, just loved to actually more like Ronnie Lott. She just I
Okay.
said you're good for a yellow card in every game.
Yeah.
Knock yourself out. Establish your
Did she
space
did
so
she
that
bite
and
did she lose a part of a finger once? She was so dedicated.
uh, no, but I mean, she probably would have. But the point is that one thing we don't talk about, and in soccer culture, it's actually more extreme than football culture in that they won't wear like we have proven headgear that works. You know, they look like these little like meditation fake ECGs that don't work, but you know, basically little head pads, which you know create a little bit of space. They won't wear them. Like I remember my kids like, "Hey, I have
Mm.
the data," and they were just like, I might as well have said in someone said to me in my era, like you can't hit someone except like with you can grab them or something, right? Like they were just like, no, that we're not doing. So there's a culture in almost every sport that until there's I think a different generational evolution
Mm.
around safety that occurs. But I would say soccer at this point has consistently more head trauma
Yeah.
because in any set pieces, especially anything that's going to go in the top half of the goal. It's all head. I mean, it's just like 10, 15 kids going up head to head. I mean, it's just if you ever watch a
Yeah.
say you under 14 and above get match or high school or college. I mean, and there's always a kid that goes down too. I mean,
Yeah.
their bells rung. And so I think, but for whatever reason, we've coded soccer, football as a cool sport for elites.
Yeah.
Even though
It,
they don't
only in
play it.
this country, by the way, and
Yes.
outside this
Well, outside this,
country.
well,
Yeah.
and actually, I would argue, having played in, like, I play in some adult leagues who, let's just say, have no elites in them, but have a whole bunch of people in probably the bottom third socioeconomically, and that's pretty normal. I don't think I'm saying anything pretty weird there.
No.
Like that sport is not an elite sport anywhere else. It's their football, it's their NFL
Yeah.
around the world. So there is this strangeness in how our elites are allowed to sort of define almost like a taste setting
Yeah.
of what appropriateness is in sports.
They get to define safety through the prism of taste, which is
Yeah.
bizarre. And I
Yeah.
hate to boot. Aaron's always so interested. I
Oh,
hate
and
to
actually,
boot.
one last quick
Oh,
point. Chris
okay.
has
We'll
a
get the
great
last thing.
point. Yes, about wrestling, which I totally forgot. Wrestling is way worse than probably all these sports
Mm.
because, like, real wrestling, I mean, those, if you ever watch like 140 pounders, I mean, it's scary, right? These guys are
Yeah.
just basically breaking each other's necks and slamming each other down, and
Just
so
and making weight is still a thing.
yeah. So that's a great point, Chris.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron. If it looked like I was looking off when you were saying interesting things, it's because I got distracted by how young Occidental alum Marcus Robertson looks when he doesn't have his gray beard. He looks younger than me in his mid 50s. Very impressive. And I got quite distracted by that. Great stuff as always. Man, we don't have too much time. We got to get some graphics and some art. I can do some segue. Speaking of, this isn't a great segue, Mike, that speaking of CTE, Tua Tagovailoa is on the Presidential Sport Council. That's not a great segue. That's not what I should say. That's not good. But yes, they're bringing back the presidential fitness test. Donald Trump did a whole press conference about this. And apparently, this test was done away with during the Obama administration. And there's an executive order. I'm going to read a little quote. The presidential fitness test is a national physical assessment program that was originally introduced in the 1950s, specifically launched in 1956 under President Dwight D. Eisenhower. The test was designed to measure students' physical fitness, including cardiovascular fitness, upper body and core strength, endurance, flexibility, and agility. Typical exercises included a 1 mile run, pull ups or push ups, sit ups, shuttle run. I'm not going to go through the rest of it other than that. I did this when I was in school, and I had no idea that I should have blamed Dwight D. Eisenhower for it. So it's coming back, Mike. The press conference. Did you see any of the press conference?
I
Very
didn't see
amusing.
the press conference. It's good to know that it's the interstate highway system of tests. Obviously, he's bringing it back, and he could have done it in the first administration because Obama was the one who eliminated it. But he did eliminate it, or, I'm sure. I would guess that maybe he spent a sentence of his presidency actually thinking about this. But I don't know. Michelle Obama was
I mean,
interested in let's move. It wasn't in keeping with the here is an empirical measure of your number of sit-ups, and if it's too low, like 3, there's a little bit of shame involved. So it is cultural, right? And it is
yeah.
in keeping with, if not Donald Trump's physique, his culture, his the side of the culture that he's on. Like we believe
Make health
in
great
strict
again.
measures. Yes.
Yeah, they need a little bit of shame. Maybe we do need a little bit of shame. I don't know. But if Obama, I mean, I might have my critiques of Obama, but if he secretly decided that we had just gotten too fat and therefore we couldn't have this thing anymore, it wasn't workable, that's plausible to me. I'd forgive that. That would
I
make some
always
sense.
I always had a theory about Obama that he's such a good rhetorician that he knew what he was doing when he would say, just me, a skinny kid with a funny name.
Mm.
He'd always say a skinny kid because that is a humble brag in the Americas of the
Ooh.
21st century.
Let me be clear. I'm in shape.
And also, I mean, why does shame have to be intrinsically involved with fitness activities that are valuable and have empirical measures. Don't you think it's easier to instruct teachers? These are, according to the rhetoric, trained professionals who we have to
Mm.
defer to, not to instill shame in the people who can't do a pull up, as opposed to just scrap the whole system for fear that someone out there could feel shame. It is. I'll give it to you. Just in terms of the symbolism, it is a little woke to
Ah,
eliminate
yes.
the
There we
presidential
go.
fitness test. Is
Vibe
it not?
shift activated. Vibe
Is
shift
it not?
activated. No, I'm not against it. I think I would say if you're somebody out there who really hates Trump as nearly, especially anybody actually older in this area I run into, I think you benefit rhetorically from choosing a few low stakes things that you're okay with. Then some of your arguments, you pull a Bill Maher. There are certain things Bill Maher will say. He's not crazy on that one. But I think this one might be a good low stakes thing.
That's right.
Somebody mentions Ryan Essen here. Lawrence Taylor was one of the athletes. This is his description: a convicted pedo launching a children's physical fitness program. I was interested in the use of Lawrence Taylor. I believe he was convicted of having an encounter with a 16-year-old prostitute, convicted. And then there have been subsequent legal issues because he hasn't wanted to register as a sex offender. That is what I read online. And it is strange that he's part of that setting and there's not as much shame about it. But I do think if one of the themes of this episode is violence in sports, I do think we give a certain amount of immunity to people who do the crazy violence in sports, and we do judge them differently. And there is a little element of, hey, that's, we're not going to judge
Yeah.
that person like we would a Harvey Weinstein. It's a different thing. I don't know
Yeah.
how much of that goes into it.
And
I will
also, New York of that era, you have the crazy man of Tyson, of Lawrence Taylor. I bet you a Dwight Gooden would fall into this category. These are people who are inherently appealing to Donald Trump and
Yeah.
maybe his conception of what it takes to be an elite athlete. Stay out of this guy's way.
Oh yeah. I remember, wasn't Lawrence Taylor, didn't he have a cameo in The Sopranos? Didn't that happen at the
I think
poker game?
so. I
Yeah.
know Mangini, the Jets coach, was in The Sopranos once, eating
I
in Vesuvio.
I think of Trump as a little like Tony Soprano. It all fits, it all hangs together. Some will say I don't endorse at all what Lawrence Taylor was convicted of. He was incredible in Any Given Sunday. He was absolutely amazing in that movie and is perhaps the best performance in it. He said, and this was, even if you might not like his presence at this particular council, it included such luminaries as Bryson DeChambeau, the golf superstar who drives it a million yards. There was also Harrison Butker, the kicker, and
We know why he's there. Yeah.
WWE superstar Triple H, who has a real name that I can't remember right now. But Lawrence Taylor was called up to the stage. He seemed shy. Trump called him shy. He didn't seem to know why he was there exactly, but was
Yeah.
humble about it. And I'll read this quote that he said. I'll read this quote. And, conceptualize what I'm saying to you, Mike. I'm saying it about you. I'm saying it about us. I'm saying it about this episode. I am proud to be on this team. I don't know what we're supposed to be doing, but I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve you. I'm going to do the best I can for as long as I can. That's what
Yeah.
he contributed in that particular setting.
All of those athletes are quick, short bursts of energy type athletes, right? Not too many endurance athletes. I don't know. Maybe Bucker, if asked, can kick 75 field goals in a row without a break. But that's the kind of Trump athlete, isn't it?
Mm.
The boom, the bang. I would have liked to have seen him get Bannister. Well, he's dead,
I
but a
think the
miler.
Bucker thing is because he entered into the culture war by
Oh yes,
speaking at the Catholic college and going after Biden, and so he's in good stead within
clearly.
within that orbit. I don't think it has to do with having a cannon leg. See this guy is an amazing leg. I don't think it's that necessarily.
Leg out of central casting.
Oh, this guy. It's I mean, look, it was amusing. RFK was speaking there. I
That guy's
thought this,
fit.
he
That
is fit.
guy. That
You
guy's
can't
good latimus dorsi, one of my favorite muscles.
you can't take that away from him,
That's
folks.
right.
And this is another thing, as I'm advising the anti-Trump libs out there, as it were. I feel like they try to fixate on Trump's flaws with golf, I've noticed online, but they're not golf fans. And I feel like you got to give it to that guy. That guy can golf. I don't know if he's cheating or not cheating or what.
Well,
That
you
guy
saw the
can golf.
video, right? You made fun of the boomers who cared about the video of
Oh, you
his
remember
caddy
that?
tossing the ball.
Well, okay. So I don't know the circumstances of when Trump was accused of cheating at golf, but I think here's what I'm going to say. This is going to be the last thing I say before we wrap up, perhaps. I think I had a lot of misapprehensions about golf before I played any golf. I thought it was this sacred game where nobody ever cheats. And I would hear about political figures cheating at golf. I would hear about Bill Clinton cheating at golf. And it was this, remember, we were more easily scandalized back then. It was, oh my God, you never do that. You don't do that. And then I get out in the world and I go golf with my friends and they go, oh, you hit that one wrong. You want to take a breakfast ball? Oh, you don't want to hit it there. You want to hit it over here instead? And
Yes.
it's all loosey goosey casual. And I think for a lot of people who've never played golf before, they assume the etiquette is like you're at the Masters
Yeah.
when you're at the public course at Tilden.
Yeah.
And if they see a president or a candidate or somebody they don't like moving a ball somewhere, they react like it's a scandal. And that's all I'm saying. I think
I
they don't have the
guess
proper context.
I guess if you took a breakfast ball and signed NAFTA, it would be something to answer for.
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't know if it was Clinton. I think that's a Halperin question if Clinton got accused of cheating at golf. Somebody did. But hey, some presidential figures are just good golfers, and you're just going to have to accept it. Maybe George W. Bush should not have said, now watch this drive, after he was talking about serious matters of war in that
Sure.
famous clip. But holy hell, that was a sweet drive. It just was. There's nothing you can say about it. You can't
I
prove
would
that
say of
wrong.
that drive, mission accomplished.
Oh,
And with no right, with no irony. Uh,
well, you stuck
that's
the
another
landing
like
there.
scandalized by it was not a big deal. It was not a big deal that the policies that didn't work were the big deal. The rhetoric attached to it. Wow.
Was
It
that the
tells us
first
something about
meme, though?
humans.
Was that one of the first memes, the mission accomplished? That's a whole other
I
topic.
think Fahrenheit 9/11 was an attempt to create hundreds of memes, and a couple of them worked.
Well, it worked in the pre-social media age. Mike, this has been delightful. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much. For those of you who watch, is there anything you want to promote for us? Anything we should know before we close up shop?
Yeah, my Substack, which is Mike Pesca, every day I do something called the Gist List, 6 stories, maybe 7, maybe 5, and
Mm,
I'll bring a little gist difference to them. Did you know, for instance, that the potato has been revealed to be the daughter of the tomato? It's not me saying it; it's scientists.
that's scandal. That's
Yeah,
scandal right
the
there
daughter. I don't know how
from,
they got daughter.
from good old Mikey Peach. Hey, Michael, Michael Peach. I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, close up shop, producer Trace. It's been enough. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great time. Be safe out there. Golf responsibly. Have good golf etiquette. See ya.